Today, we talk about vintage versus modern and tell you what role they play in today's hobby.
Hey guys, I'm Mason, this is Tone, and welcome back to Krazy for Kabooms. So today we're going to be talking about really just vintage and modern and how each play a role in the hobby today, obviously both very big roles, not even just in sports cards, but even in TCG and Pokemon too. So kicking things off, how do you think a modern product is going to hold its value compared to vintage long term? Because you look at vintage, it's literally been 100 years, and its value just either is stagnant at a high value or just keeps increasing.
Yeah, and we asked that question, and I think it's a hard answer. I'm gonna give my best what I can predict. We see vintage, like you said, it's a really high market for some of these high quality graded cards because number one, they've been around for about 100 years, like you said, but then you get these in the high grades. They're super rare. They're low population, and then sometimes you find the player autographs on it, and it's even rare, which makes it so cool. Nowadays, like you said, it's a bit overproduced in the modern. I do think though that some of these bigger end cards are definitely still going to hold their value in the future. I don't know about the minor cards. I don't know how well a lot of these non-bigger cards, if you want to call it, will do in the future. Because, they've been producing a lot of product of some of these players and certain cards. And just, it hasn't been good. But I do think that with a huge card, I don't think it will lose its value anytime sooner. Obviously, unless subject to change, the player gets hurt, starts doing bad. But as long as that player has a steady career, I think some of his bigger cards won't go down. I think it's really kind of the mid-range of his cards and a lot more of the base section that still holds value today will take a hit off that.
Could you even see that a little bit with guys like great example really Soto. I mean, he's been in the league for a while now, and his market, even when he signed with the Yankees, it didn't really have this big boom, It kind of just stayed where it's at. Maybe you see minor 10-15% increase in his prices, but nothing big where it's you go from, let's say, Acuna coming off of an ACL and his prices are at an all-time low to him going 40-70 and being all the way up here. I just think there's certain players where their markets won't really change over time. Like you said, though, and I think this kind of leads into our next point with overproduction.
Yeah.
I mean, you could even see kind of parallels back to the junk wax era, back in the 80s, 90s, early 2000s, with all of these cards of all these guys being mass produced.
Yeah.
I mean, you see autos and even short prints, which should be very rare. They're just everywhere. I mean, the overproduction is getting bad, and it's really showing parallels back to the early, the junk wax era, which I think will definitely affect market value later.
You pull up a good example with Soto and Acuna. Obviously, Soto and durability and staying healthy, has been the better player on that aspect. But when Acuna plays, he is probably one of the greatest in the game at the moment.
Yeah.
And most electric, which that does very well in the market.
Exactly. You don't want boring players.
Yeah, I do think that the cards that hold value for Soto aren't in the Padres, aren't in the Yankees, and in the long term aren't going to be with the Mets. They're just going to stay with the Padres. Nationals. But with Acuna, he has a chance to, like you said, go 40-70 every year, and possibly in the next couple of years go even better, 40-80, or maybe he starts having more power and hitting 50 home runs. We don't know. With Soto, we know he's going to take his walks. He's definitely very electric, I will say that. But I just think that from an exciting point, Ronald Acuna checks all those boxes.
Ronald Acuna is elite.
Now, vintage is a different scenario. I personally like vintage because, you already know what that player has done in their career. Their career is over. When you're buying that card, it's not going to go down, right? That card, subject to change, obviously, unless something really bad happens with the player. But most of them, some of them have passed away. If you're buying a really old card, but you're buying that card because of the player he was and he once was, and all of his accomplishments. A great example of Mickey Mantle. The hobby loves Mickey Mantle.
Yeah.
Loves Mickey Mantle. He is one of the biggest when it comes to vintage. Just because he played a long career. You have like 15 Mickey Mantle cards, in each year. That, when you start at the 50s, they go for tons of money, including his rookie cards, as we know.
Yeah, and even the Bowman before.
The Bowmans were big, and then you get later on in his career during the 60s, late 60s, when he was finishing up, those still go for a couple $100, just raw, or in low grades. Obviously, higher grades are going to be low population, more expensive. I do think that, vintage, as we look, say, about in 100 years, or even 50 years, those cards that were 100 years, 80 years old are now going to be 150 years old, 130 years old. And the fact that you're saying, or maybe you say to your kid, this card was produced in 1950 or 1930s, if you're talking about Gaudy or whatever, that's 150 years old. And say you have a high copy, maybe a 7, 6, maybe even an 8, depending on the card. You're saying that is greater than an 8. That is just unbelievable to thinking that card has lasted 100 and almost 150 years in that condition, and it's a PSA 8. Some of these cards you send in, they're not even PSA 8s. They're
not even PSA 1s, some of them.
Some of them are in very bad condition, and I get it. You're producing a lot. You have so much product coming out that not every card is going to be perfect out of the pack. I wish it was, because then this hobby would have a lot more money in that. You would make a lot more money, but unfortunately, that's the way it is. But I do think vintage, long term, will always have its value.
Might even go up.
It's always going to go up drastically and slowly, just because it's going to become rarer and rarer as the years go on, of how many are out there, in good condition, and just the years, like I've been saying. Modern, I don't know if, these couple $100, these mid to low end card ranges, will hold its value long term after we look at these players' careers. Because like we said, the money that's in it now, everyone's chasing the Bowman, right? Everyone's chasing their Bowman first, of these prospects. That could be the next Mickey Mantle. That could be the next Mike Trout, right?
Yeah, or they could be complete and total
We
busts.
don't know.
They could be nobody's out of the league in the next 2 years.
The money that's in Bowman Chrome, because of the prospects, is ridiculous, and I understand why. And the amount of people that buy the rookies. Some people wait a bit and see if the rookie proves himself until they buy the rookies. Obviously, example, Paul Skeens, as we'll talk about him later in the video, but he is one of the next stars, right? Best pitcher in baseball, I'd say this year probably, that he could be. And he went from college to the minors to the majors in about a year, which is crazy. No one else has really done that.
Not even a year. It's nuts.
Hey, what if he gets Tommy John?
Exactly.
His card prices are through the roof, and trust me, I would love to buy a nice Skeens card, but he's also a pitcher.
Exactly.
There are injuries all the time with pitchers.
Big injury risk with pitchers.
Look at Strider, look at Cole. Yeah. Best pitchers in the game are going down with Tommy John or elbow or shoulder, all these times, all the problems. What's to say his value just doesn't just tank with a Tommy John? Or we flip it over to the other side, obviously. We're talking about the negative aspects of the more modern. Ellie De La Cruz, he's electric. Like, he could be Ronald Acuna Jr. 2.0, but even better. We've seen the power, we've seen the arm strength, we've seen the absolute crazy speed. What if he just falls off at the plate?
Yeah.
And then he doesn't get on base and doesn't have that many stolen bases? What if his fielding starts taking a toll on him? Those are all hypotheticals, right? And I would hate for any of that to happen, because a lot of card prices would come down. But, those are the risks you take when buying modern. And we're just talking about 2 proven players. A bit that's shown they could play in the major leagues. What if we're talking about prospects, that we're just hearing about that is really good in the minors? You never know with modern. That's why I always think vintage is always a safe space. That if you're wanting to buy a really cool card, and hold on to it for a bit, but also make a bit of money later on in the road, can't go wrong with vintage.
Yeah, so for me, like, I'm not that big of a vintage guy. I tried getting into it a little bit, but I just couldn't really, because I just really love the look of the modern cards and how exciting they are with the autos and the sick parallels and the short prints and everything. And that's what I love about, like, the Topps Legends autos, because you're getting kind of that aspect of vintage where it's like an older player. Granted, you're not going to have a Ted Williams auto or anything, but you're getting, like, granted, not anymore, sadly, Ricky Henderson autos. You're getting Ken Griffey Jr., like, you're getting Ichiro, like, here and there. I don't know if he's really signing that much, but, like, you're getting these legends, and you're getting, like, their autos and stuff, but in a modern form. So it's kind of like, I guess you could say, like, modern vintage, where it's, the card isn't holding its value because, and doesn't have these insane values because they're 100 years old, but they're still going to have some value because they're legendary Hall of Fame players, and you're taking their autograph and putting it on a modern styled card, which I just think is amazing.
And you bring up a good point, which could lead us into our next question, but, you named all those players, and when did they play? They played in 1990s and early 2000s, and that was known as the junk wax era, which is very cool. Like you said, we can't have Ted Williams, we can't have Mickey Mantle, unfortunately, but we're getting players that, their cards aren't worth much. Maybe if you get their rookie card in a high grade than a 10, they're worth a good amount. But other than that, they don't have cards from the 1990s that are worth anything, which is annoying. But that is a great point, because now you have these cards of legends that have already proven themselves: Jeter, Griffey, Ichiro, Mike Schmidt, Ricky Henderson, that are signing cards, and they're one of the greats in the game, but it's modern. And that's what people like. I know there's been collectors who just focus on that. They want to collect the set of refractors, golds out of 5s, and 1/1s. And it's a great thing to collect, because you're not going to lose that much money when collecting them, because they're already proven. Like I said, that leads us into the next question of is the 2020s, or the 2020s really the new junk wax era?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think, like I said a bit earlier, it's kind of trending into that direction. I mean, and you've said it multiple times too, overproduction is getting kind of crazy. I mean, you're looking at these sets. I always bring this up personally as like a prime example. You look at Victor Wembanyama, because he had no autos in any of the Panini product because he signed to Fanatics, but you still have all these, like, I guess, like, in Panini, I think it's like Panini 1-in-1, he got his downtown, but then you also have Prism and all these other Panini products where you have a bunch of his rookies, right? And you got the low-numbered rookies to base rookies, but there's still a lot of them, and they're being mass-produced. Then you look at Topps, not only are they mass-producing rookies in the same way, but you also now have his autos too.
Yeah.
And it's getting even worse with Topps, because they are trying to milk, personally, what I think, they're trying to milk as much as they can out of Wemby. You see, we're almost done with the current NBA season, and they just released one last product with Wemby autos and Wemby rookie autos in it.
But also now Topps is producing so much product, not on just for one set. I'm talking about you see a new box come out every week.
Yeah.
And it's crazy compared with the two companies. And I'll give you a good example. We all know Topps Chrome Baseball. It's very popular. It's been popular for a lot of years. And they came out with, 2 years ago, Topps Chrome Cosmic for baseball.
Yeah.
Now we see that with basketball. That was not
and football too.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, football just came out. That is not a good product for basketball. I don't know much about the football yet, but I'm talking about for basketball. I don't even think you're guaranteed an auto. In that it's
you aren't
like
for baseball either.
$240, and yes, you aren't for baseball.
But there are very high hit rates.
That box contains a lot of hits of a lot of great players.
Numbered cards.
A lot of numbered cards, a lot of parallels, and I don't want to say mostly, but usually you get an auto in that box. Now, granted, for basketball, it's not a good product because the Wemby autos aren't even selling for that much.
And on top of it,
They're
they're
not-
not even licensed.
Because they're not licensed and they're overproduced. We already saw the Topps Chrome Wemby autos come out, but then a couple weeks later, a month later, they're releasing the Cosmic, and no one wants
They're
it.
just flooding the market.
And then no one wants it, and it's basically almost the same product of Topps Chrome. Granted, the backgrounds and the Cosmic look to it.
Like, personally, I'm a fan of Cosmic.
Yeah, Cosmic's a great set. I like it for baseball because it holds a lot of value
Yes.
in there. For all those good rookies, it gives you a nice rookie rate. You know, you're gonna get a nice hit out of that box most of the times. But that's just one example of it not being worth it. And you could probably come up with examples for each sport. But you know, with Jaden Daniels, I see a lot of his cards sticker. I don't like that. I mean, you're already
No,
giving us the
yes.
non-license, which I know Topps can't do anything about that because, you know, the legal battles, but, you know, then you're giving us sticker autos, and I don't like that. I don't like that coming from that product. But I do think, though, that product will hold a little more long-term value in the future just because of the class.
Mhm.
As of now, with, like you said, Daniels, Knicks, Caleb Williams, those are all possibly generational talents based off how they played this year. Maybe in the future, that product could hold some more value just because of those couple players.
Yeah.
We're going to the next one. What's more appealing? We kind of touched up a bit about that of modern versus vintage. You want to just...
Yeah, so for me personally, I said a bit earlier too, like, I tried getting into vintage a little bit, and, like, you know, it didn't really go too well. And it's mainly just because it's, like, for me, it kind of feels, like, off, I guess, when I'm dropping, let's say, $300-$400, which, granted, the current market isn't a lot, but if I'm dropping $300-$400...
It's a lot to some people.
Well,
but
yes.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Like, dropping that much money on a card that, like, to me, personally, like, it doesn't have that much eye appeal. So it's like, the premise of vintage is very cool to me. I love the premise where it's like, you have cards of these legendary players from 100 years ago. Like, what I love about modern is that you can spend $300-$400, not even, and get these vibrant, cool parallels of rookies and rookie autos that really just pop out to you.
Mhm.
That, like, I think it's just, like, basically, like, has more eye appeal. Like, even if you're comparing, let's say, like, a junk wax era card, like, you're comparing, like, a Mark McGuire rookie to, like, a Bobby Wood Jr. rookie, let's say.
Yeah.
Like, the Bobby Wood Jr. rookie out of Topps Chrome is going to have more eye appeal to me because it's got the shine, and it's got the cool design,
Yeah,
compared to
the
just, like,
refractor.
yeah. And what I like is how, even though it's not that popular of a set, Topps Heritage tries to kind of bring that back
Yeah.
a little bit
Mm-hmm.
with the, like, they have, like, the real one autos where you're getting
Yeah.
autos of these modern players, but in a
look.
vintage look, which, to be honest, I think is a very, very cool idea for people who collect both. And the best part about it is Heritage, and I think Archives does it a little bit too.
Yeah.
It's not an expensive set.
Not at all. Not at all. It's I think about $120.
For a hobby, I think.
It's not expensive at all. And I'll give you my opinion on the two. Granted, I do agree what you say, and a lot of younger, modern collectors would easily say that, and I 100% agree. But to me, there's something about buying or looking at. I know, it's going to take me some time before I get some of these cards in the vintage, but there's something about looking at, even when you go to these shows, about looking at a Mantle rookie.
Yeah.
There's something about, to me, looking at a Gaudy of Babe Ruth. It just, something about it, for me, it gives me, like, wow, right? This is a legend. This is this legend's card. Obviously, the more eye-appealing it's going to look, the higher the grade, the higher the cost, right?
Mhm.
But, when I first got into it, seriously, I was also a big vintage guy because, I collect, like, the GOATs. I've put that very clear in my collection now. where I like to buy GOATs of Hall of Fame players in their sports. I like to buy Messi, Jordan, and then that's where the vintage comes in for baseball. When we talk about baseball sport, Tom Brady eventually, collect more of him, or even Mahomes, if you want to call him one of the GOATs of football.
And what's cool about football, you can even go to like receivers and stuff and running backs.
They're some of the best. But I was into vintage in the beginning. I bought a ton of vintage. This last couple of years, it kind of got out of it because I got stuck in the modern era. And then I came out and realized, after investing in some of these bonus players and rookies, that most of them have worked for me and some have not, right? And I sat down one day and I'm like, why am I doing this, right? Why am I spending a couple $100 and trying to hope that he's going to be good? Granted, that's a good standpoint for flipping and making money, but I'm like, why am I doing this to just have in the collection and maybe sell one day if the player gets good, when I could just be buying the GOATs? And that's why I'm kind of towards more vintage now when it comes to modern. And I think just looking at a clean copy of an older vintage player, you look at a Sandy Koufax rookie, their colors, the colors on the card, granted it's not the parallels and all that, but the colors for a 1955 rookie just pop off. The mantle and the 1952 top set, vibrant colors, they pop out so much. Granted, better grades, better color, and even the Gaudis, man. I fell in love with the Babe Ruth. Obviously he's my favorite player, but the Gaudis of him, the four. So I just fell in love with that day one. Just how much you're looking at it, and it's like, wow. It just for me, it really. I think, and it happens with a lot of collectors eventually, that they're eventually, once, sometimes the modern doesn't work out, vintage is always such a stable market where you can buy your favorite players, good investment long term. So that's why for me, I do think that vintage is always a great buy, with some of these players, and that's what I prefer more, just because I would rather buy Babe Ruth than Ellie De La Cruz. Granted, a big price difference, but that's something I would work up to if I wanted to buy some of those cards. And I've been very verbal about it, probably to you, how I've wanted to buy some Ryan rookies and Sandy Koufax and more Mickey Mantles for my collection, because it just you also show, say you show someone your collection. As long as it's not a kid or like us in high school, you're gonna show it to like an adult or someone. They're gonna be like, "Wow, Mickey Mantle." I remember showing my collection to someone, and it was like, who Mickey Mantle is, who Ted Williams is. Some of these players, no one even knows who Corbin Carroll is unless you follow baseball, because he's young. He's a upcoming superstar possibly. They're like, "Oh, cool, Adley Rutschman, Corbin Carroll." That's cool. Wow, Mickey Mantle. People know who those are, and that's what I really like to focus on, just because you'll get the wow factor out of some of those cards, and especially in good grades.
Yeah, I mean, I could even attest to that. Like, I recently had a family event, and like I've told you recently, my uncle has gotten into collecting, and we were talking about cards, and my cousin actually came over, and he's older than me. I think he's probably in his like mid-20s, but he was like looking at me and my uncle's cards, and for me, I collect, bit of baseball, bit of football, mainly baseball though, and he was looking at my stuff, and he saw like Joe Burrow Kaboom and like and some of my Parsons cards, right? And he was looking at it and they're cool, and then he went to my baseball stuff, and he didn't really know what he was looking at, because they're more of the modern players. And if you, like you said, if you don't really follow baseball, you're not gonna know who Bobby Wood Jr. is. You're not gonna know who Corbin Carroll is.
He could be looking at a very expensive card, and he's gonna be like, all right, cool, next, and then he sees maybe a $200 card compared to an $800 card, and he's like, oh wow, I like that $200 card, because you'll know who it is. To cap this up, let's go into some modern events that have happened recently in the sports card world.
Starting off with recent events in the hobby, doesn't really matter what you collect: football, baseball, soccer, hockey. You've definitely heard about the Paul Skeens. Just finished on auction, 1.1 mil, bought by Dick's Sporting Goods.
Yeah, that was interesting.
Which was
if you're in the hobby, you've heard of this Paul Skeens card. You've heard of the chase of the MLB debut patches, and it was a big story for a good 6 months maybe, a little less.
Still going too.
Yeah, it was a big story, and once it was a little shady at 1st, when the kid, supposedly a kid, pulled it and he didn't want to reveal his identity. He was in California.
Yeah.
A lot of rumors about what really happened with that, and the whole Topps just shipping it right to him a month after he pulled it, and then it going right to PSA, and from PSA it goes right to Fanatics, and
the fact that it got a 10-10.
Not even have a chance. A lot of rumors around that card and that process, which is, supposedly a kid did pull it. We don't know what the reality is, but all that aside, it just finished Thursday night, and it sold for $1.11 million. The kid will take home $925K from the selling, more than Paul Skeens' annual MLB salary.
Yeah, I mean, considering he's a rookie,
$875K, and the kid just sold his card for $925. That is absurd. And then later, in fact, we found out Dick's Sporting Goods bought it. What do we think about that?
Yeah, definitely think it's very interesting. They said they were going to display it in their like Pittsburgh mega store, which I think is very cool, especially considering the Pirates actually wanted to have it for like their like home museum, I guess. But yeah, I think it's very interesting that a big corporate company like Dick's Sporting Goods decided to purchase it.
They said they were going to keep it in their pop-up store in Pittsburgh. So granted, it is going back to Pittsburgh, where the card could belong, for a lot of people to see. And supposedly they wanted to bring passion to young sports players, or I guess I don't see how that card really fits into the whole Dick's Sporting Goods athletic wear. To me, it was a bit confusing for me to understand that. But to be honest, hey, they wanted that card. They were the highest bidder. And you know what? If they have good intentions with it and keep it in Pittsburgh, I'm all for it. And that also leads us into the baseball season ramping up.
Yeah.
We are 4 or 5 days away from opening day, and that gives. And right now, I could tell you a lot of people, with their investments are making either money or maybe a little hesitant on whether to keep investing. And this is the time of year a couple years ago where I really realized that why am I investing in some of these players? Obviously some go right, some go wrong, but this is the time where some of these investments are either going to work out very well if they get that call up, or they're going to have to wait and see how much hype they have in the middle of the season.
Yeah. I mean, very excited for baseball season, as like we're both baseball guys, but yeah, can't wait to see how these new rookies coming up go, like how they turn out.
Topps comes up with great ideas, including this newly announced gold logo man.
Yeah,
which is very, very cool. They just announced this about a week ago, and it basically is saying for the players who won awards last year, you're superior, if you want to call it that. You are getting on your jersey, instead of the normal MLB patch, you're going to get the gold logo man. And the only players that get this is Aaron Judge, Shohei Ohtani, Paul Skeens, Luis Seal, Chris Sale, and Tyreek Skubal. Those are the only
7 guys.
Yeah. Only guys that are able to have a gold logo man patch that we're gonna see in cards, which is great.
Yeah.
And now you get that gold patch. That's gonna have a nice little premium than a normal patch.
Just a regular logo.
And I'm curious if on every jersey they have that patch,
or it could just be opening day.
Yeah. So I'm curious how they do with that Logo Man patch. Is it every game they wear it? Is it only a couple games? Which now it's very rare to get that gold Logo Man, and this patch didn't come. Or maybe they're wearing it for the whole season, and you get a patch, and it's dated back to when maybe Aaron Judge hit a couple home runs, or Chris Sales has dominant performance, or same with Skeens. So that's going to be very cool. I'm curious how those cards are going to look. Curious what they're going to do with those types of cards and those ideas.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think they really went in the right direction with that. And I think, if anything, what they could do with it, or what they might be doing with it, like I said, is they could be doing it just for the first game of the season.
It could be
almost kind of creating, like, I guess you could say, like their version of like a debut patch, where it's like they just won this award, and it's like game worn from their first game right after they won the award, and only that game. So I think it's because you could see even on like all these like influencers posts, and even Topps does it here and there. I think, like, imagine if Juan Soto or Ken Griffey Jr. had their own debut patch.
Yeah.
Like, you're getting guys who can get their quote unquote debut patch as a gold Logo Man, but like, it's like that type of card.
Yeah.
But it's a high end card.
This is going to conclude the video.
Episode 2, yeah.
We hope you enjoyed listening to our opinion of what we think about modern and vintage and some current events that are happening. I hope to catch you guys in the next one. See ya.